Oh, you're still Avi. Are you actually even fucking Israeli or Jewish, or do you just do shit to troll on Twitter?
Oh, I'm just trolling it. No, I'm Jewish.
Oh, okay. I don't fucking know. Why is it funny? How am I supposed to know that? What?
My name is Avi.
Is that a... Oh, Avi Shlam. Oh, never mind. You're right. That is a Jewish name. I don't know. Okay. I thought it was like fucking short for Avatar or some shit. Jesus. Okay. Fuck you.
My last name is Bitterman, by the way.
Oh, true. That's right. Is that a Jewish name?
Yes, I have the most Jewish first and last name. Like one of the most, like short of like Schmeckelstein or something. Like, I mean, come on, dude.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess a couple of things. I think I don't know if he was referring to the new Hamas through its documents when he talked about like.
Oh my god! I just
Hamas.
had a fucking brain blast, Avi. But sorry, I'm sorry. I just keep newer. When people argue against an ethno-state, because they think that it's bad to preserve a certain type of character or whatever, I wonder how those people feel about what do you call it when a whole bunch of gentrification? I'm so curious how they reconcile those stances. I'm sorry, that's okay. That just blew my mind apart. Okay, go ahead. Tell me what you were saying. Hamas charter. Go ahead.
No, I can touch on what you're saying, like a little bit. So wait, is what you're talking about? Well, just complete that thought that you were getting at with the ethno-state, with gentrification. Like what?
So the macro level argument I would make is the reason why. Number one, the reason why ethno-states are cringe from a United States citizen point of view is because the United States has no like binding ethnicity. Like we're clearly, and Nazis can cope, but like we're clearly like a multi-ethnic, multi-background, multi-immigrant. Like there's just so much shit going on in the U.S. It's kind of hard to imagine like a demographic threat to this country. Unless you're like a 2-inch fucking neo-Nazi kid or whatever. So it's weird to imagine it from the West. It's very easy to quickly say like, well, this is unethical. Why the fuck would you have ethno-states? But that's one. Number two is I think there probably actually are a lot of de facto ethno-states around the world. There's just not like a lot of people immigrating there. Like I'm sure, I could be wrong, maybe I'm being racist, but like I'm sure that if we look into a ton of different African countries, I bet that there's a really high concentration of certain ethnicities, but like you're not going to see like 50 million people of a different ethnicity, like especially like a white or Asian or Hispanic one, try to like move into that country. But if you did, I bet that you would see a lot of people like being like, hold up, you're not going to have 50 million people from Mexico immigrating, into fucking Ghana. We're not doing that, chief, right? They're going to like actually push back on that. That'd be my guess. So two, there's probably a lot of de facto ethno-states. Or sorry, what were you going to say?
You mean like what's happened, like something like Japan, right?
I don't know enough Japanese history to even say.
I think that like a huge amount of the demographic in Japan is Japanese, as opposed to like any other ethnicity, and I think they do certain things. I'm not an expert on Japanese culture, but I think there are certain things that they do to sort of keep things along that.
Yeah.
I think there are, I think there are certain countries that, while they may not be explicit about like, oh, it doesn't really may not be explicit about, oh, ethnicity per se, and here's like the specifics. They sort of might proxy things, like even the ethnicity sort of laws in Israel are like when they say Jewish, that's strictly speaking that is the religious definition, and not that they don't do a 23andMe test to see if you're Jewish or not.
Sure,
they're not checking your genes, they're not checking your heritage. You could convert, and if your conversion is through like some recognized quote legitimate conversion, you could be of any ethnicity, and you get that right to return. Yeah, it's just the issue is that sort of proxies some sort of ethnicity in practice, and so really what's being proxied in a lot of these cases is some sort of set of beliefs or something, like some sort of value, some sort of set of beliefs with respect to how one behaves, how one acts, what one's allegiances are to a given state. And I suspect a lot of countries, if they found these proxies that were so, concordant with just diametrically opposed values that they want to have and diametrically opposed beliefs that they want people to have, and then it started really becoming a huge demographic issue, there might be more sympathies to things that we would consider ethnic cleansing or anything along those lines.
Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, no, okay. I see where that's coming. But the point is that it's what's ultimately being targeted here. I don't think is like someone's genes. I don't think it's like well, we really care about like this base pair sequence, like, and it's like if only, or even like someone's like skin color or anything like that. I don't think that's the ultimate thing that's being targeted here. I think these things are, to whatever degree they're targeted, they're targeted as a proxy for something else, and they're just used as a proxy for something else. And what people see is like, oh, well, in practice, this just means that those features are just going to be acted upon, and that's like a really bad thing, right?
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with that. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you've read this. One of the things I was mentioned, I don't know if this was being referred to, like Hamas's statements right after they won the election. Have you read? I think I'm not sure, but I think I might be referring to A New Hamas Through Its Documents by Khalid Rube. I don't know if you've read that one.
Or if not, but go ahead.
Yeah, and basically, like the argument I've heard is that basically, okay, well, they signified like an agreement to like some sort of like two-state solution. It signified it was like basically a little bit less of a radical type of statement than their initial charter that they came out with.
Yeah, which was unhinged.
Yeah. It's not saying much. Of course, the issue with all of that is that if you actually look at their new quote unquote charter, it's not a charter, it's their new statement.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sentiment that they're doing these sorts of agreements, and you could read this yourself and judge for yourself. It's called A New Hamas Through Its New Documents. That's the title of this. So you can make that judgment for yourself when you read it, but there seems to be a lot of lip service to like, well, we're really just doing this for pragmatic reasons, but it's like the moment like we have like this opportune time to like go for the full one state. And, you know, from the river to the sea, blah, 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 all Palestine. We have that right to do so, and we will do so, basically. So, yes, it's true that technically speaking, yes, they begrudgingly or pragmatically agree to this two-state solution. It's kind of like the JK type of agreement. Like, just kidding. Like, once we have the opportunity, we're going full one state.
Sure, that might be the case. I would need to read the statements. Yeah.
Yeah. Read that. That was my impression. My impression is like, okay, well, yes, you're agreeing it for pragmatic reasons, but there's also like a number of statements in there that are just like, no, we still have the right to all of this shit. Yeah. And then the other thing I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. First off, the 15,000 number you mentioned, I think we're basically there. So I don't think that number. We're at 14,854. So I mean, yeah, we're at 15,000. I don't think it's 15 or 20. So there's that. But that's whatever. It's tiny. The other thing I wanted to mention is like when people say international community, they're generally referring to the UN. And I don't think you'll disagree with this, but the sentiment of the international community of the UN, you can have like a consensus of the UN on a given agreement or whatever starting point, whatever that means. That being the consensus may play into its being pragmatic, but it certainly doesn't mean that it is pragmatic.
Sure. I don't even know necessarily if like UN statements or resolutions are supposed to even necessarily be pragmatic, right? They might just be like sending a statement or making an opinion or something known on something.
Yeah. So like when people say this thing like, okay, well, 1967, because I'll just be honest about like my view on 1967 borders. I think 1967 borders are like, they're certainly worse borders, but the 1967 borders I think are really stupid. I don't think they're conducive to peace. I don't think they have a track record of being conducive to peace, and they also just like, for my priors, they just don't make sense. But that's a different conversation. But I think people have like an ideological attachment to the 1967 borders based on the international community, UN. But if you look at the UN resolutions in terms of how like Israel is going to look at that organization, they have a whole bunch of reasons to just see them as a hostile entity at this point. Overall, the UN the UN still does not recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization. The UN if you look at their resolutions, unilateral condemnations, there is no shortage of unilateral condemnations of all sorts of actions of Israel. If you look at the Wikipedia page of UN resolutions concerning Israel and UN resolutions concerning Palestine, on both of them, all of the unilateral resolutions of condemnation are against Israel. There is not a single UN resolution that they were able to pass unilaterally condemning Hamas ever in the entirety of their history for any of their terrorist activities ever, even though they were voted on. Every single resolution that has tried to vote on a unilateral condemnation of Hamas, even October 7th, has failed to pass in the UN. And the only way they were able to get it to pass was by changing the unilateral condemnation of condemning Hamas to
a mutual condemnation of Israel and Hamas, or
yeah, exactly.
Sure.
For October 7th, that was the October 7th resolution.
Yeah.
To condemn Israel and Hamas. So when people say like, "Oh, hey, well, the reason we know like the international community has this consensus, that's where you can argue it, but that's where it is." Like that guy was saying, well, where is there? Is there the UN? Is there the UN that when October 7th happens, with the responses to condemn Israel and Hamas? Like that's where it is? Okay, maybe that is where it is. But fuck any country in that situation is going to go like, okay, well, keep it there and flush it down the toilet. Fuck that.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean that's basically it. So you can call it whatever you want. You can dress it up however you want. But as far as whether there's a consensus on whether that's an actual practical resolution, there's two very different questions. And if what the consensus is seen, rightfully so, as basically a hostile entity by one of those people you have to negotiate with, it's probably the fact that they agree to it doesn't really give much reason to believe that is a practical solution.
Sure. Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree. Yeah.
All right, that's about all I got for now.
Okay.
All right.
Have you ever been to Israel before?
I was conceived in Israel.
Does that mean no?
Well, technically it means yes. It means the sperm hit the egg when I was in Israel.
I guess it depends on your definition of human life, huh?
Yeah.
Not an abortion debate. Oh no. Have you seen me tweet out anything or talk about anything that you like heavily disagree on, or?
Well, we talked about that one thing. I think you're off on those numbers with the 15,000 and.
Oh, you think so? Yeah. I don't
mean,
know, man. We'll
already-
see.
We're there.
Yeah, but there's also already really heavy pressure on Israel to stop everything, right?
And they've already basically said, "Fuck you guys, we're continuing."
Yeah, I guess. I'm going to be real curious when Israel gears up for when. Do we have a date yet on when they plan to start marching into the south?
So it depends on. So the hostage release, last I checked, is expected to happen on Friday. It was initially expected to happen on Thursday, but the problem was I think there was pushback from Hamas on letting the Red Cross. Part of the agreement was letting the Red Cross see the other hostages, just like confirm they're alive and stuff.
Yeah.
But apparently that went a little bit south, so I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. It looks like part of that agreement at least has a little bit of pressure, or at least a little bit of like floundering. I'm not sure what the result of that will be, but that got pushed off at least one day. So if it happens on Friday, the expectancy as far as 4 days. However, there will be a day added if Hamas releases 10 additional hostages. So for 10 additional hostages, they get another day of the ceasefire.
Okay.
So depending on how long Hamas wants to prolong it, and depending how many hostages they have, or how many hostages they're willing to give up, they get an extra day for each one. So at minimum 4 days until Israel goes to the south, or at least continues operations, and until they run out of hostages, I guess. But there's been no indication so far that Israel, like at the end of all was said and done, is going to say like, okay, well, yeah, that's it, or we're being friends now, like, or something like that. Yeah, so we'll see. But I think we're already at 15,000, and we'll probably be at 20,000 pretty shortly.
Okay. Yeah, I guess we'll see what happens. Yeah.
All right, have a good one.
All right. Love you, buddy. Be careful.
Take care.